Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Are you frustrated by training that creates short-term interest but not long-term change? Hosted by Making Business Matter and presented by Andy Palmer. If at any point you do experience any technical issues, please let me know via the chat facility that's available to you, and I will do my best to assist you. Thank you. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Jo. Good afternoon and welcome to this MBM webinar. The title for today is, Are you frustrated by training that creates short-term interest but not long-term change? I'm going to share so you can discover 7 simple and effective ways to make training stick forever. Our webinar today will be around 30 minutes. Jo will be with us for the duration of the session today, picking up on questions that you have. So please don't put those questions into the question box, and we've got some time planned at the end to go through those. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for taking the time out of your afternoons to be here today. So a little about MBM and myself. We are the soft skills training provider to the UK grocery industry, helping suppliers to win more business. Our clients choose us because of our money back guarantee, our relevant experience, and because we make learning stick. A link will be available at the end of the session should you wish to know more. And here's a little about me. In summary, I've been training teams and individuals for the last decade, with my previous careers in the retail industry, both at supplier to the supermarkets and at a supermarket. Okay, here are the topics I'm going to cover. Number 1, create habits if you want to change behaviours. Number 2, make the learner's notes useful and effective. Number 3, teach someone else. Number 4, don't hand out slides at the start of the day. Number 5, know that within 30 days, 80% is forgotten. Number 6, transfer learning to the long-term memory. And number 7, help learners to maintain their attention. These are 7 tools from 18 which are available in our free guide. This free guide will be made available to you after the session. We hope you enjoy. Okay, session 1 is about creating habits if you want to change behaviours. In order for a learner to make a behavioural change, it helps the learner if they create a habit. For example, if after attending a time management training course, the learner wants to better manage their time with a daily to-do list, they will need to create a habit of writing a daily to-do list to change their behaviour. Now, habits are very hard to break, such as smoking. Many are very hard to form, such as going to the gym. Professor B.J. Fogg from Stanford University has studied habits for many years and is a leading expert in this field. So we borrow some of his work, and I'm going to share one of his techniques with you right now. So the easiest way to form a habit is to piggyback it onto an existing habit that you already have. For example, the majority of us, if not all of us, have been brushing our teeth since a very early age. However, many of us would prefer to floss a little bit more often. We go to the dentist, to the hygienist, we come back and we know we should be flossing a little bit more often. They've encouraged us to do it. We do it for a week or so, but then slip back. The suggestion here is piggyback flossing onto the habit that you've already got embedded of brushing your teeth. You've got the right environmental factors in terms of the dental floss being available in the bathroom cabinet. So piggybacking flossing onto brushing your teeth maybe every morning will help you get that habit up and running and stay with you for long term. There's a lot of debate and a lot of research about how long it takes to form a habit. General rule of thumb, looking around 21 times within about a 3-week window. That said, this fact is very much open to interpretation. Lots of people talk about 66 days, 2 months. For me, it's really about doing it consistently for a period of time until you start doing it without that real kind of conscious effort. It just becomes something you do day in, day out. For another example, to go back to time management, many people want to write a daily to-do list. However, they kind of come in, they open up their laptop, they get stuck into their inbox, they get approached at their desk by various colleagues. A very simple technique is kind of, hey, look, get a blank to-do list, put it under the cover of your laptop. When you come in, you lift your laptop case up, there's your to-do list. Before you switch your laptop on, before you start having all those other distractions of the day, get that daily to-do list written. Again, I'm piggybacking writing a daily to-do list on starting up or opening my laptop. If I can do that for a fair period of time, I'll just do it every single day, day in, day out. So my suggestion here is really around forming new habits by piggybacking them onto existing ones. Session 2, make the learner's notes useful and effective. Many trainers hand out the slides at the beginning of a training course. They then ask learners to make notes as they progress throughout the day. The problem with this is fourfold. Firstly, learners don't know how to make useful notes, so they note down every bit of information from the slides. Secondly, someone other than the learner has created the slides. This means that the graphs, images and words are not displayed in the learner's preferred thinking style, which makes the information much harder to understand post the event. Thirdly, by handing out the slides, learners take very few or no notes. This means the learner has not had the chance to process the learning. Lastly, the slide deck becomes the learner's primary recollection of the day, which is not a useful method for implementing behavioural change as there's just too much information to take in. Our suggestion is for learners who have attended previous learning events and received slide decks and vast quantities of handouts. Encourage them to convert those notes into a one-pager, maybe a mind map. Ask the learner to identify how they best learn. Do they learn by physically making notes? Encourage them to then make maybe flashcards and do a mind map. Do they learn best by reading and hearing their notes out loud, their auditory learning, in which case they could make an audio file? Or simply by reading over their existing notes, visual learning, the act of them rewriting the notes into a smaller summary will be far more effective to them. By adopting methods that fit best with learning styles, learners will make more use out of their notes and which will encourage them to achieve long-term behavioural change. Session 3, and my personal favourite, is teach someone else. We all know what it's like. You think you've understood something, but it's not until someone asks you about the topic that you realise you didn't understand it at all. This is the same for learning. Having to speak about something that we've learned means that we've had to have understood it and be able to put it back into our own words. In order to do this, internal processing of information needs to take place. This is why sharing our learning with others is so important. A client recently asked for our help on GSCOP, the law surrounding how supermarkets treat their suppliers. It wasn't until we'd written a book, published it, and really got under the skin of it that we fully understood the subject. Our suggestion here is to create an opportunity for learners to share what they have learned with their peers. This could form maybe a lunchtime bite-sized learning session where they share information amongst each other, a presentation to their boss on what they took away from the training event, a report on how the learners have used their learning and created a new behaviour, possibly a piece on the company newsletter or a blog post on the company website, maybe creating a video of what was learned, i.e. here's my 1-minute video of time management tips. They could create a flip chart or maybe a poster of key pieces that they've taken away and put that up on the office wall. Or it could just be sitting at the desk talking to their colleague about what they took away. The real value of teaching someone else something is twofold. One, the person who's sharing that information transfers it to their long-term memory through the act of teaching someone. And secondly, the person that they then teach gains a free bit of valuable knowledge that person already deemed vastly and hugely important. So our suggestion is to take the opportunity to teach someone else something that you've learned, and ideally do it within 24 hours. This is a key point when the brain chooses to dump information. If you want to really take something powerful and transfer it to your long-term memory, teach someone else. Session 4, don't hand out slides at the start of the day. We've all been on training courses where the trainer has handed out slides at the beginning of the day so we can take notes. Some learners diligently take notes and others don't. At the end of the course, we leave thinking, that was a great day. Then, in an impromptu desk tidy-up some 6 months later, we find the slides and reluctantly throw them out. We take a few seconds to think about the great day and then throw the notes in the bin as we tell ourselves we'll probably never look at them again anyway. It's a real shame. Our suggestion here is don't have slides, don't give handouts. In fact, don't give out much at all. At the start of the learning event, help your learners to understand how to create useful notes and encourage them to think about the format and how they will use them after the training day in order to facilitate the behavioural change that they want. One suggestion could be mind mapping. Alternatively, you could use a keeper's template, which will capture those golden nuggets of information on just one page. The important part is that learners have made their own notes in their own writing about the things that solve their potential and actual challenges. They can capture the next steps and the actions that they want to transfer over their daily to-do lists, and then they can review that one-pager, key points to prevent that loss of information that will happen over time as we naturally forget things. The reality of reviewing 60 slides versus maybe a one-pager is far more achievable. Our suggestion here, don't hand out or accept vast quantities of slides at the start of the training day. Take ownership for your own notes. Session 5. Know that within 30 days, 80% is forgotten. In the mid-1800s, a German psychologist carried out a series of tests on himself to understand how much he remembered over time. He used 3-letter cards and plotted his research based on how much he could recall at key points post that initial absorption of information. His name was Hermann Ebbinghaus, and his research became known as the forgetting curve. In essence, Hermann Ebbinghaus identified that we forget over 80% of what we learn within 30 days unless we do something with the learning. For example, repeating the learning will significantly increase our chances of remembering it for a long term. Our suggestion is for learners to understand the impact that they will forget what they have learned unless the learning is repeated, applied and used. If the learning is simply left written on slides, it will be forgotten. Here are 3 ways you can help learners. The day after the training, ask the learners to teach someone else one thing that they learned at the event. At 10 days after the training, suggest that the learners make a diary reminder to rewrite their notes. After 30 days, email the learners a task related to the learning to really keep it alive and being used. Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve and spacing effect were large contributors to designing sticky learning. We wanted the scientific research to be the driving force behind how we learn best. More information is available on our website if you want to find out about this a little bit more and really understand what sticky learning is all about. Session 6. Transfer learning to the long-term memory. One of the key challenges when it comes to learning is getting the information to transfer to the long-term memory. Without this transfer, the learning is simply forgotten. Transferring the information requires the learner to engage in translating the information into a form that can be easily processed mentally. This is similar to librarians classifying books in order to be able to find them again. We use a Christmas tree as a metaphor for encoding. Imagine taking down a box of baubles from the loft. They're shiny, clinking together and very exciting. This is like new information we receive when we're learning. The Christmas tree represents existing knowledge of which new learning can be hung upon. The task of moving the learning from the short-term memory to the long-term memory is similar to finding a place to hang the bauble. Once it is hung, it stops being just a shiny bauble and becomes useful because it has a home. The baubles that are unused and put back into the loft are similar to the information that we liked, but we just couldn't find a use for, and it didn't fit onto our mental Christmas tree. Our suggestion, in order for learners to transfer the learning to the long-term memory, they must identify their individual learning objective. This is why we must keep returning to the following question: how would you like to use this back at the office? We suggest that learners, prior to attending any training event, consider what they want to get out of it, as opposed to coming into the day and just expecting to find something that they might just find useful. Session 7, and our last session, is about helping learners to maintain their attention. Scientific research differs with regards to exactly how long we can maintain concentration. We all know that concentrating for too long is difficult because the mind wanders, sometimes because we have a lot on our minds and often because we just need a break. Alternatively, it can be just because we're reflecting and processing what we've just learned, which is the type of reflection that trainers want to see. The distraction tool transparently deals with this challenge by providing learners with a solution that almost encourages them to take a moment's daydream. Our suggestion is to avoid distracted learning. Ask the learners at the start of a learning event to take a sheet of paper and title it Distractions List. As their mind wanders, whether it's to I must send that email after this event, or I must make that phone call on the way home tonight, or I really need to buy some chicken for dinner tonight, ask them to make a note of what they're thinking as their mind wanders throughout the day. This will help them to regain focus much quicker, get them back to the training event and not forget what they were thinking. Okay, so they were the 7 tools from the 18 available in our free guide. The ones I've just covered were: create habits if you want to change behaviours, make the learner's notes useful and effective, teach someone else, don't hand out slides at the start of the day, knowing that within 30 days 80% is forgotten, transfer learning to the long-term memory, and how to help learners to maintain their attention. We now have some time for some questions. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Full details of the webinar, including the slides and the audio, will be made available to you. Thanks again for attending. Back to you, Jo.
Thank you, Andy. There is now an opportunity, as Andy said, to ask some questions. You can use the question box that is available, and please note that any questions that we don't answer in this session, Andy will reply via email to you. Andy, we do have our first question. What are your thoughts on how far in advance should the student's learning objective be written?
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, it's a good question. I guess in my experience, we typically request 30 days prior to event. We do this because for us, it's important that the learner is given some time to reflect, consider what their needs are, and also it's equally important that they have time to discuss it with their line manager. What they're really looking for is support from the line manager and buy into that particular element that they want to develop. If I'm honest, we do have to nudge learners in the week prior to the event to come back to us. However, giving them that extra time does ensure that it's very well thought through and really kind of signed off and supported by their line manager.
Thank you, Andy. It seems there are no further questions and you've done a great job covering all the topics. If there is anything else that you would like to know more about, please feel free to contact Andy directly. You can contact him at ap@makingbusinessmatter.co.uk. A follow-up email will be sent with a copy of the slides and a full recording of this webinar. I am going to launch a quick poll, so if I could ask you just to complete before you do leave, thank you. That now brings us to the close of the webinar. I would like to thank you all for attending. Thank you.